welcome to the Week 12 edition of the Draft Report. My name is Matt Brown. This is brought to you by DFSReport.com. And as always, head over to your favorite app store, download the Draft app, and when you do that, use the promo code REPORT, R-E-P-O-R-T. That'll get you a free $3 entry into a real money contest on the Draft Fantasy app. It is a great way to play DFS. No salary caps, quick little 5-person draft when you're talking about football. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, and 2 pass catchers. That's all you got to do. And then you'll be on your way playing some DFS this weekend. This is going to be an abbreviated podcast here, guys, looking at getting into the holiday spirit here. Hope you are having a good holiday as well. Hopefully the Thanksgiving games are treating you well. Going to skip over those guys because they start real early. And by the time this podcast gets going, you won't have time to get a draft in anyway. So looking into the Sunday games here at the quarterback position, one of the guys that really jumps off the page every single week is Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the guy that you should be targeting very, very highly. I usually wait until the 5th round in these drafts to go after my quarterback, but I think with the way Tom Brady's playing and the consistency he brings, there is merit to maybe even reaching for him in the 4th round. One of the things that you really can't do these days is count on someone to pair him up with. Tom Brady's throwing so many touchdown passes that you can soak up so much fantasy goodness by just drafting him and not really having to have a correlation play with him, that everything is perfectly fine. Obviously, we thought Gronk was going to have a Gronk smash week last week. Didn't happen. It ended up being a Brandon Cooks game, who we were also high on as well. But you just never know. It's going to vary week to week, but Tom Brady is the one consistent there. So Tom Brady certainly super high. Russell Wilson going against that terrible San Francisco team. It is at San Francisco. It's not at home in Seattle, but still should have no problem rolling whatsoever. So behind Tom Brady this week, Russell Wilson is actually probably going to be my number 2. Another reason I like him so much is they just have no run game. He is everything for them. He is their running back. He is their quarterback. He is accounting for so much of their offense that Russell Wilson has to be, from a fantasy perspective, one of your top couple quarterbacks this week. Another guy that I like this week is Cam Newton. Cam Newton coming off of a bye here. Cam Newton also likely going to get back his number 1 weapon in Greg Olsen. And I can't really stress enough how important that is for a guy like Cam Newton to get a guy like Greg Olsen back in that lineup for him. So Cam Newton going up against the Jets. Love this matchup. Love Cam Newton this week. 2 other guys that I'm going to be targeting. Carson Wentz, every single week, yet another guy that just produces. He throws touchdowns. He gets you a pretty good base with his legs. And going up against a Chicago team that, frankly, has done pretty well against wide receivers, and you would think that maybe they would be able to bottle Carson Wentz up, but no one is bottling Carson Wentz up this year. This offense, so many different ways to beat you, so many different ways to attack you, and basically he just gets it done each and every single week. Carson Wentz, despite the matchup that isn't the greatest on paper against Chicago, still a guy that I'm going to be targeting. In deeper leagues, you can certainly look at Roethlisberger. You can certainly look at Mariota going up against Indianapolis. Obviously, Indianapolis, a team that we pick on very, very often here. And while he had a complete and utter dud last week, Alex Smith does get this Buffalo defense that has absolutely quit on the season. Horrible statistics over the last month for this Buffalo team, basically in every single aspect of the game. So be sure and take a look over there at Alex Smith as well, despite the fact that he kind of burnt you last week. At the running back position here in week 12, here's a shocker. I love Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell going to be going up against Green Bay. Green Bay just been getting gashed all over the place here. And look, this Pittsburgh team, I keep saying that I think they're going to figure it out. They haven't really quite put a whole game together yet, but they just continue to win. They keep getting it done, and Le'Veon Bell is a big reason why here. We're going to get another 20-plus touches out of Le'Veon Bell. There are not a lot of running backs out there right now that we can basically put a floor of 20 touches every single game, and that is what we get with Le'Veon Bell, and we understand that a ceiling is something like 35 touches for this guy, and we've seen it. We've seen the 10 reception, 25 carry games. I mean, this is not out of the realm of possibility for a guy like Le'Veon Bell. So obviously the number 1 overall guy. Todd Gurley is very interesting this week going up against this New Orleans defense. This New Orleans defense is definitely much improved. That being said, the one leak they do have is you can run on this defense. Like you can't really pass on them all that well. Marshawn Lattimore, a big reason for that, though he might be banged up this week. but you can definitely run on this defense, giving up a lot of yards per carry. I think LA will find some success on the ground, and obviously Todd Gurley is the guy there where they're going to find all of that success. Did you play Kareem Hunt last week? Check. Did he burn you? Check. Yeah, I know. It was very frustrating. He still had some decent yardage. Just the fact of the matter is Kansas City just couldn't move the ball. There were no scoring opportunities whatsoever. He was never in the red zone, it seemed like. So it was never an opportunity for him to get in the zone and really have a monster day. Fortunately, he gets a bounce back spot here against Buffalo, who has given up 9 rushing touchdowns in their last 3 games to running backs. That is right. 9 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games to running backs. Kareem Hunt, bounce back spot here. Let someone else, take one of these other guys and you go ahead and take Kareem Hunt. Don't let that recency bias fool you there. LaShawn McCoy going up against Kansas City on the other side of the ball there. I think this is another amazing spot for him. Kansas City has now fallen to last in the league in DVOA versus the run. So they are giving it up on the ground tons. And we obviously know the explosiveness that LaShawn McCoy still brings. And they are going to start Tyrod Taylor, which I think helps LaShawn McCoy a ton. Nathan Peterman did him no favors last week, even though he was able to produce numbers on a couple of big plays for you. Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, every week. Doesn't matter. New Orleans offense is a well-oiled machine. They figured out how to utilize both of these guys. They have specific play sets for both of these guys each and every week. Do not worry about them one bit. One of the things I'm definitely going to look at here this week is Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette is a guy that I think I'm going to let someone else draft a little higher than I want to. If he fell to me in a spot where I felt okay going ahead and taking him, I would. We know the volume's going to be there. One of the things is actually this Arizona defense is about 10th, 11th, depending on the rankings you look at in the league against the run. So in the upper third of the league against the run here, I don't know if Leonard Fournette is going to be able to just absolutely go off on the road here against Arizona. So for me, I'll let someone else draft him, and I'll go ahead and look to take one of these other guys a little bit later. Tevin Coleman, looks like Devontae Freeman's still going to be out with that concussion. So he's going to be the guy in the backfield there against this Tampa Bay defense that can be had. So Tevin Coleman, certainly a guy that you should be looking at as well. I'll pass on Carlos Hyde, mainly for the reason that San Francisco just doesn't have enough scoring opportunities. And certainly I don't expect them to have a ton against Seattle. Even though this defense is kind of banged up, I still don't expect San Francisco to be able to just have their way with them left and right. I think Carlos Hyde, while he'll probably be okay between the 20s, don't really know how many scoring opportunities he's going to get, so I'll back off there. Looks like they're finally figuring out how to use Christian McCaffrey there for Carolina, and that is a good thing for us fantasy players. I think he is a guy that you need to have up your list. If you want to roll the dice on a New England running back, it looks like Deion Lewis has the most consistent role there, so he is a guy who I would definitely consider in that role. And listen, if you expect Tennessee to beat the hell out of Indianapolis, which, it looks like that they probably will, if you think that is the case, then, there's always merit to like a DeMarco Murray, because he could always fall in the end zone a couple of times for you when they get inside the red zone. We've seen it a couple of times this year where his rushing total is only about 40 or 50 yards, but he gets those 2 short touchdowns and ends up having a really good fantasy week for you. So certainly a guy that I'll be considering should he fall to me in the right place. Doug Martin, just not any good. I'm not going to be going after him. Don't really like this running back situation in Green Bay. Doesn't look like Ty Montgomery's going to play. That means Jamal Williams. Pittsburgh's defense has been really, really good. Want no part of them whatsoever. Jay Ajayi against Chicago. I actually respect Chicago's front seven pretty well, so I'm going to be passing on Jay Ajayi. The only other kind of lower tier guy that I would consider, I think is, weirdly enough, is Damian Williams. I expect New England to just absolutely demolish, absolutely crush the Dolphins, and Damian Williams is the pass catching back there. So what's going to happen, and you see this all the time, you see it with the Browns a lot. That's why Duke Johnson has had such good value in fantasy this year. You get down a ton, you take the regular running back off the field, you just keep the fast-paced pass-catching guy on the field, and he just continues to catch dump off after dump off after dump off and rack up, 60 or 70 yards in garbage time, get you 6 or 7, 8 catches, something like that. I think that could be the case with Damian Williams this week for the Dolphins, as the Patriots just go in there and absolutely crush this very poor Dolphins team. And to the pass catchers this week, start with the wide receivers here. Antonio Brown, AJ Green, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas. Don't need to make a case for any of these guys. Of that group, the guy I do like the most here, shockingly, even over Antonio Brown this week, is AJ Green. Here's the thing. Antonio Brown, I can see Pittsburgh getting up a ton in this game against Green Bay, and Antonio Brown just putting up good, not great numbers. The thing about Cleveland is they actually have a pretty good run defense, and the way that you beat Cleveland is through the air, and AJ Green obviously is going to be the guy there for Cincinnati, so I think he's actually my number one overall play this week. A little bit of game theory there. Obviously, Antonio Brown's going to go higher than him in just about every draft that you're in. Julio Jones, we've not had one of those Julio games this year. We've just not had a massive Julio Jones eruption game where he goes for 11 or 12 catches and 165 yards and a couple touchdowns. I don't know what's going on with that Atlanta offense. They have seemed to be performing a lot better of late, so they're starting to figure it out. I imagine Julio continues to be a big part of that. Tampa Bay, you can certainly have a good chance at attacking these guys through the air. So listen, Julio obviously in play. Mike Evans hasn't had a 100-yard game so far this year, pretty shockingly enough. We're not going to have Jameis Winston this week. It's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick again. I don't think that really hurts Mike Evans per se. He's just such a volume-driven guy. That being said, maybe I'll let someone else take him. Maybe I'll let someone else kind of overdraft him, even in a matchup that I think is pretty good against this Atlanta team where I think they're going to be playing from behind. You look at Brandon Cooks, they're coming off a monster week this week, but like I mentioned when I was talking about Tom Brady, the only thing is consistency with these receivers week in and week out. Chris Hogan might play. We don't know with that shoulder injury. If he were to play, that would certainly murky the situation there with Brandon Cooks. And then there's always the chance that it becomes a Gronk game or they just basically target the backs out of the backfield. Tom Brady's just so good at taking what the defense gives him. That being said, if you're in a deep tournament, Brandon Cooks has to be pretty high up your list. A guy that at any given point, as we saw last week, can just break huge, long touchdown passes, can make your week in one single play. Doug Baldwin, very, very high up my list, probably in my top 5 this week of guys that I'm going to be targeting up against the San Francisco team. We've got a Seattle team now that's really playing for in must-win situations from here on out. So can't see them taking it easy on really anyone going forward. Tennessee secondary is bad, actually in the bottom quarter of the league in covering wide receiver ones, and that means T.Y. Hilton's back in play this week. So T.Y. Hilton, might have forgot about him. Colts were on bye last week, everything like that. T.Y. Hilton, certainly a guy that can exploit this Tennessee team, and he's much better at home on that fast track in that dome. So T.Y. Hilton, pretty high up my list. If you think Miami's going to get crushed and they just, basically are going to get a ton of garbage time yards, obviously Jarvis Landry should be up your list a little bit there. Sammy Watkins now the de facto number 1 in L.A. I don't like that situation now that Robert Woods is hurt. So for me, Sammy Watkins, I'll let someone else draft him. Juju Smith-Schuster, second on that team on the Steelers in receptions and yardage, but dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. They think he's going to be able to go, but certainly something you need to monitor all the way up to when we get going here. Rashard Matthews, a guy you never like to click on there, but listen, Indianapolis, just bad defense. In every single metric, they're in the bottom quarter, bottom 10% usually, in just about every single defensive metric. So Rashard Matthews there still seems to be kind of the number 1 guy there in Tennessee, though I do think Corey Davis is probably going to overtake that role. Couple of other guys here as we close out, coming off a big week. Larry Fitzgerald going up against Jacksonville, total pass. Jacksonville defense, shut down corners, have been killing every single person that they go up against. Don't like them one bit. Amari Cooper, save a bailout touchdown, would have been on the road to another just bust week here. Can't trust him. Going up against Denver, I'll take my chances elsewhere. I would rather look at one of these boomer bust guys, to be honest with you, like a Marquise Lee for Jacksonville, like a Paul Richardson, kind of a wide receiver 2 situation in Seattle going up against San Francisco. One of those type of guys is someone that I would almost rather take my chances with as well. And listen, one of the guys to keep on your radar here, if Juju is forced to sit, Martavis Bryant would be the guy who would be the wide receiver 2 there, and certainly worth a spot on your rosters this week. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Appreciate you hanging out with me here. Week 12 is already upon us. It's depressing. I can't believe this football season is almost over. Hope you enjoyed your holiday. As always, head over to dfsreport.com. You can get all your picks and plays for all the sports that are going on out there. And go to your favorite app store, download the Draft app, and use the promo code REPORT, REPORT, and that'll get you a free $3 entry to a real money contest upon your first deposit. My name is Matt Brown. We will see you for week 13.